And welcome back to the Garden Guys. As always, it's me, Peaches, and today I'm here with Meg.
Hi.
Hello. How are you today?
Excited.
Yeah.
Nervous, but good.
New for you?
Yes. Very new. Very new. So
who are you?
Well, my name is Meg, and honestly, I am on my social media. Mm-hmm. I am called Recover Your Power. And it's actually not a name, it is a program that I came up with.
Okay.
So I create social media, mostly TikTok, but I'm getting into podcasting and YouTube as well. Mm-hmm. Really excited about that. For women, primarily women who feel really lost in their life, because I've been there, done that, and gotten through it. Mm-hmm. So what I see as power is that which makes you uniquely you. And I want to see every woman, person, be that unapologetically. Know what that is. And a lot of times people just don't know. So people call me a life coach. I call myself a perspective shifter.
Ooh, I like that. Perspective shifter.
Well, sometimes you just don't see anything but this tunnel vision you're in. And someone just opening that up a little bit to look in other directions can help a lot. And that's what I try to do.
Mm-hmm. When you think about it, like having blinders on, if you just shift 1 degree, you're taking in maybe 10% more information, and that could be reality shifting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I started out in the realm of, and I don't like the term anymore, but narcissistic abuse.
Okay.
And toxic relationships. Because that's what kind of brought me to TikTok. That's what...
Ignore me, I'm just grabbing a notepad so I can write down questions and I don't forget.
No, you're fine.
Taking a pointer from my husband.
Yeah!
They love when we do that.
So you were talking about, you got into this, like narcissistic abuse groups and...
Right, and what I found was... On TikTok, there was something called Narc Talk, and they started focusing heavily on the narcissist, on the abuser, and I had evolved into how do you get yourself back after this happens, because they no longer matter, but everybody was concentrating on them.
Would you say that they are still in the process of processing what was done to them?
Yeah, which has to be done.
Right.
Has to be done. When I first learned what it was, I was literally going through YouTube, looking at videos of how to get your ex back. This is an ex who cheated 4 times. This is an ex I went back to 4 times. This is, I had been through 2 divorces.
Okay.
I'm a champ. And long-term relationships and breakups, and nothing broke me like this one did. I couldn't understand why I couldn't get over it, why I was so damaged.
Okay.
So I started researching how to get your ex back because I was so desperate, and ran into a creator named Angie Atkinson, who does narcissistic content, and it was eye-opening. I'm like, oh, that's what happened. So part of it was understanding what I had been through. And then from there, they kept saying, practice self-love, practice self-love. And then the ball dropped. I'm like, how do you do that?
Yeah, when I first started getting into my self-care, people preach self-love. How do you even do that?
That's
when, especially like say we're starting in childhood. A lot of people fall into the same relationships they see demonstrated at home. Mm-hmm. So if your parents are not capable of self-love and you grow up in that environment, that is your whole world. Like, you can call it ignorance, you can call it whatever. There is a lack of information there for that person to know that there is a whole nother world of self-love, self-care, taking baths, doing your makeup to make you feel prettier, doing your hair, changing the color, putting on nice clothes, painting your nails. How did you find that self-love? What was the beginning steps for that?
Wow. I went back to a time where my depression, I suffer from depression and anxiety as well, chronically, from the age of 14. Mm-hmm. So I went through 2 years of therapy because I was in bed for 18 hours a day. I did not function. And I had 3 kids. Mm-hmm. I was a mess. So my husband said, if you do not fix this, we're done. I can't do this with you. And so they sent me to a psychiatrist who proceeded to hand me many pills.
Who's they? They sent you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Like my doctor, my PCP, my primary care, sent me to a psychiatrist who just talked to me for 5 minutes and handed me a lot of pills.
Oh, this is your first visit?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Wrote all the scripts and said, here's what you need. And I said, oh, okay. Now, this was probably 5 to 15-minute conversation with me. I went home, took the medication, and felt crazy. I felt so out of myself, I didn't even know how to work.
Define crazy for me.
Somewhere between a zombie and my mind racing. If you can imagine that dynamic doesn't work.
Right.
I was hyper anxious, which I already battled with anxiety. So I'm like, what are you doing? I couldn't keep a thought in my head. It just wasn't me. And no, I didn't want to lay in bed 18 hours a day, but I couldn't function on this medication. Mm-hmm. So I went back to the doctor and I said, I had my bag of medicine and I put it on his desk and I said, if you can't help me without this, you are not for me. And he handed me a list of 5 people, and at the time I wasn't driving more than a mile from my house because of my anxiety. Mm-hmm. I found a lady that was 4 blocks down, worked out of her house. And I went to see her, and she comes to the door, and she's like 5 feet tall, this little person. And I was like, hello, ma'am. And she had cats on the porch, and she had dogs in the house, and she worked out of her home. And she was amazing. Mm-hmm. But what she did for me was she listened first, which I thought was amazing. And then she didn't just keep listening. She gave me tools every day. She gave me homework every week. Every week I had to do these things, and I didn't know why I was doing them. And she built a toolbox for me that I could use to beat my anxiety and depression with. Now, she did say you need to be on an antidepressant because you need to get on top of this so we can do the work. Without it, you have to function through this therapy. And I was like, okay. So I did, and I did everything. I did everything she told me to do because I just believed in this lady. Mm-hmm. But she did different things. She taught me yoga. She taught me yogic breathing. She taught me meditation. She just, everything that mattered. I mean, it was things that actually mattered that I could use in my everyday life. And after 2 years with her, I drive everywhere. I have to keep an eye on my depression because it is clinical, mm-hmm. but I don't take meds. And it's just, I kind of pulled from everything she told me at that time, which was, almost 15, 20 years later that this happened. Mm-hmm. And I started pulling from everything she taught me. And I said, okay, how can I take care of myself? How can I do that? And what I figured out was it's not about going to the spa. It's not about painting your nails. It's not about any of that. Mm-hmm. It is truly about healing very old wounds. And how do those old wounds carry through your life and make you in cycles of attracting the same thing into your life over and over again?
It's a lot to process.
A lot.
That was a lot to take in. So who was this lady? Was she licensed? Was she practicing? What was...
She was something I had never seen before because I had seen psychologists mm-hmm. since I was young, and because I was a bad teenager, Mm-hmm. And so they sent me to a psychologist. The psychiatrist is the one who prescribes medication, so psychologists can't prescribe drugs.
Okay. But
he didn't do any counseling. So I found this woman, and she's a licensed clinical counselor. So she's not a psychologist, and she's not a psychiatrist. She was a licensed clinical counselor,
okay.
which still takes a master's degree. It's still... I don't know if she has a PhD or not, but I know she at least has a master's. Mm-hmm. And she just took a different approach than anyone I'd ever seen. And it was very hands-on. I would say she was much more hands-on in exposing me mm-hmm. to coping, ways to cope, rather than talk therapy, right. which I think is trash, and I'm going to say that right out loud. It's trash. If they're not giving you steps to move forward.
Right.
So
Yeah, hearing how she practiced and the way that she did things, it sounds more human.
So human.
Yeah.
She was so human. We are actually excellent friends now after my therapy. She knew I was going through, my husband ended up leaving. Mm-hmm. And because after 2 weeks, he said, "Why aren't you better?" Okay.
Well, all of this hurt wasn't done in 2 weeks.
No, it was
Excuse me.
No, it was not. And I didn't even know where it was coming from, really. So it was 2 years, and we ended up, if you think in any other realm than normal, she was very spiritual. Mm-hmm. And she truly thought that we were mother and daughter in a different life.
Okay.
She was one of those. She was my little spirit child. She was so cute. But she gave up a child when she was young, and I lost my mother when I was young.
Oh, wow.
So we ended up having a very different mother-daughter bond. Mm-hmm. And so after therapy was over, which was always very professional, except she was nurturing. Mm-hmm. She was nurturing, which I needed. We ended up being wonderful friends, and I still call her mama to this day. So
that's dope.
She's phenomenal. Yeah, it was cool. Really cool.
It's really neat to hear humans coming together like that, especially... I don't believe in coincidences.
I don't either. Not
so
one.
Just hearing that and the way that things fell into place, I love that for you. That's dope.
Well, what are the chances that I wasn't driving more than, a mile from my house, and she's less than a mile from my house, and right. I love animals, mm-hmm. and she had animals there, which were really soothing to me, and then from there, it was just magic. Like, she belonged in my life, and that was neat.
It's crazy to think that, okay, so things just lined up, right? Like, this woman was less than a mile from your home, you loved animals, she was super sweet. Mm-hmm. People, when they experience a good thing like that, they're like, okay, so what's next? Like, what's the joke? Is Ashton Kutcher getting ready to jump out? Like, what's happening?
Where am I?
Right.
Yeah.
People don't think that way, though, when bad things happen. Because they're so used to the bad things happening.
Oh, yeah.
So bad things happening and then good things happening. When things go right, that means you're going in the right direction. You're doing what you need to do. When things are going wrong, that is literally the universe or God or whatever you believe in telling you, you are not meant to be here. That is why you are so miserable.
Oh, I am a huge believer in that now.
That's
huge
crazy.
Believer in that. There has been so many things that happened to me that pushed me to what I'm doing now. Mm-hmm. And at the time, they were horrible.
Yeah.
And it just keeps happening. My God is stubborn. Mm-hmm. And he has to be more stubborn than I am. And he's proving himself to be. Because he sent a whole hurricane to wipe out my life.
Yeah.
And then I lost my job last week. Mm-hmm. And because I won't do what I meant to do. I have not embraced this fully. And I have, a lot of fear behind it. I have no choice now, and I don't want one. This is what I want to do. So
I'm excited.
Super excited. Yeah.
It's going to be super dope to watch you blossom and create your own empire out of things.
That's the goal.
So I made some notes.
Sure.
First one is, while you were learning these tools, mm-hmm. how fresh were you out of the abusive situation? Because you said you were with him, and it was completely different from all other relationships that you've been in. Yeah. So when did you start seeing her? What was that timeline?
That was 20 years before. I saw her 15 or 20 years before.
Before you got into that relationship.
Yeah. So I saw her from 2007 to 2009. Okay. And this happened in 2019.
Okay.
So it had been a while, but I pulled from what she taught me.
Gotcha, and that's what kind of got you through it?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So when you were learning these tools, was there ever any pushback on your end of things where you're like, this is absolutely ridiculous, why?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. She said, I remember specifically, she said, we're going to talk about your mom next week. And I said, no, we're not. Because I was 6.
How dare you?
How dare you? Yeah. I was 6 years old.
Yeah.
She died when I was 6. She was sick from before I was born. And was in a hospital bed my whole life.
Wow.
I didn't know any different. Mm-hmm. And I had told myself my whole life, it didn't make a difference. Because I didn't know any different. It's kind of like you don't miss what you never had.
Right. I
had 7 older siblings who went through it and had a much harder time because they actually knew her. So my thing was, it was a blessing that she died when she did, because I didn't get to miss her.
Right, you didn't have to go through all of that pain.
Right. which was a lie that I told myself my whole life. And when she pushed it, I'm like, don't go there with me. And she's like, we're going there. I'm like, no, we're not. And like my higher power, right, has to be more stubborn than me, so did she. And this little woman, for as tiny as she is, packed a punch, you know, and she just said, and the way she turned the light on to that for me was I had 3 young kids. And she said, what do you do for your 6-year-old? And I said, well, I put him to bed and I feed him and I hold him and I read him books and get him ready for school and all that. And she said, who did that for you?
Damn. I have tissues if we need some.
No, I'll get over this really quick. And it just hit me that basically when I was a kid, everybody did the best they could. I had 7 siblings dealing with a dying mom. I had a father who was dealing with a dying wife at 46 and 8 kids. And I was maintained. I was fed and maintained. So I didn't get what I give my kids. I didn't realize it, and I just figured I didn't miss it because I never had it. So yeah. So that was an eye opener and huge healing. Yeah. Huge healing from that.
I'm trying not to cry now.
Don't.
No, but that's a lot to think about because our son's about to be 6.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Oh, fuck, not you over here healing me with things. Stop.
So my grandson is 7. And I remember looking at him and his mom and thinking, if Kayla disappeared today, Barrett would be lost. And I never let myself feel, I don't remember feeling that. I have no idea what that felt like. But oh Lord, I'm so sorry.
No, you're
and
fine.
I'm not a crier.
I'm just super emotional. This is me.
But it's that deep. And with the work I do with people, you have to go that deep. And because what led me to where I was had a lot to do with what happened when I was young.
Right.
And that's where people don't want to go.
Because it's painful.
It is.
It's painful to think about the past and what did happen, what could have happened, what didn't happen. And then living in the present, especially being a parent, and seeing where you are doing the things that you wished were done in your childhood. It's so much to process. It's a lot to take in. So
I parented out of guilt a lot.
Yeah.
And I was determined to not be away from my kids. So here I gave my kids up to my husband, which we had 50-50 parenting. I never lived more than 5 minutes away, but I was battling anxiety and depression, which kept me from my kids a lot, which gave me a lot of guilt, which let's go on this circus ride, you know. So there was a lot I had to process, and everything that happened to me, what I noticed, led me to get into cyclical bad relationships. You know, there's a lot more that went on, but, you know, I was by a knife point at 14.
Oh, wow.
By my boyfriend. There was a lot. There was all these things, but I blocked. I blocked it all. I just got through my life. Mm-hmm. Everybody's like, oh, you're so strong and you're resilient. And I'm like, I'm a wreck.
Yeah, I'm just waking up and on autopilot at this point.
Yes. Yeah. And until I faced it all, I carried it. And it's a heavy burden to carry.
Was it heavier to carry that burden versus actually facing it? Because a lot of people say, I can't think about that because it's too heavy, it's too much to think about, it's too painful.
Oh, but it's painful like this.
Yeah.
Because now now you take back. And that's what I say, from all of these things that happen, you take back the power you're giving it. So your whole life you're giving power to something that happened years and years ago. And it's taking away your power a little at a time until you end up in bad situations or in a cycle of your life always being a mess.
Yeah.
So, yes, it hurts. It's tough to look at, but it's harder to carry. It's heavier to carry. Mm-hmm. In the process I take people through, you let it go. You make peace with it. I had to look back at my family and say everybody was doing the best they could. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of forgiveness. It's a lot of understanding. But if you don't go all the way back there, you won't know why you're here. So you can heal from that last relationship, the empty nest syndrome, whatever you're going through that leaves you lost. And in order to find yourself, you have to go back, and I used to say heal your past, but I believe it's just making peace with it.
Yeah.
And that's what I call it now, is making peace with your past.
Yeah. That, the forgiveness of the things in the past and whatnot. You know, I've been done dirty by a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And there is, the last week has been a lot, right? And I finally feel like a lightness about every aspect of my past. There's not a single part of my past where I'm like, I can't, it's too hard, or like it still gives me anxiety, or it puts me in fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
Making peace with your past is really, it's a journey. It's a lot to do. It's a lot to process. And I can't remember where I was going with that. But
it's a necessary journey.
It really is a necessary journey. If you are constantly miserable, constantly depressed, why is this happening to me?
Mm-hmm.
The tracing it back, whether it be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years,
Yeah.
getting back into the roots of things. There's a, what is the plant called? Kudzu. It's a plant species, and it literally grows over everything and blocks the sunlight and kills whatever it's growing on top of and absorbing all of the nutrients. The only way to get rid of that plant is to uproot it, get rid of its whole root system and destroy it.
Yep.
If you just cut off the plant or cut it right there at the base of the ground, it's going to come back because you didn't do the hard work to get in there and really rip it out.
Yeah. That is such a great analogy.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
Kind of remember where I was going.
Good.
So that forgiveness of people in the past, very hard to do. Takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a week. You could be 3 years like, you know what, I am okay that happened. And then something might trigger it and you might flare up and be like, fuck everybody. I can't believe they did me like that.
Right.
That's that raw emotional reaction. You'll always come back down from it. Some people will say, well, it's not fair to me if I have to forgive them. Like, they didn't apologize. They don't care that they hurt me, so that's not fair. What's your opinion on that?
It's tough. It is tough. But the only person you hurt by not forgiving is yourself. Because they don't care.
Yeah.
They passed it. They probably either don't remember it, don't care. They didn't care when they did it, and they don't care now. There are some people, like if you've had a very specific incident with someone that you can actually talk to face and get forgiveness. I never recommend that. Just because of what I do, I don't recommend. Maybe if it's a parent and you need to talk to them and you need to kind of figure out, where were you at this time? Because as parents, we know we don't do everything right.
Yeah.
I remember going to my stepmother who came in when I was 9, and I said, what could we have done different? Because I was terrible to her. Terrible to her. And who comes into a family and takes on 8 kids when you already have 5 of your own?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so there's 13 of us all together. And what kind of a awesome person does this and then fights somebody like me?
Yeah.
Who was like, you're not my mother. You're not my mom, right?
Somebody who sees the good in you.